Welcome back to another edition of Solve. Today we are working on a BMW X3 X-Drive 3.35i. Now today we'll be doing the rear brakes. I have the vehicle jacked up in the middle of the ham or differential in the back and have the wheel off already. What you're gonna need is 17 millimeter. Where are you? 17 millimeter socket, always for BMW, Mercedes. 5 lug nuts there, and the following tools is what you're going to need to do this job. Either a 7/8 wrench or adjustable plier. You have the brake tool here, press back. You have the, I'm using a 9/16 on this double ratcheting box end, 15 millimeter wrench. You have the T30 long and T45 quarter drive with a 13 millimeter socket, and of course a quarter drive Milwaukee gun as well. This is the part number for the sensor, and let's get to it. Okay, so now that we know all the tools and parts, the brake pads the customer chose are the 1473s, and let's go inside before we take this apart. I'll show you what to do. Now that we're inside the vehicle, unlike BMW, which they have a fancy scanning tool, they can hook up and just press a few buttons and then they would do exactly what we're doing. But we're going to show you how to do it mechanically, manually, instead of electronically. And what you would do from here is you would turn the vehicle into the on position without pressing the brake pedal. You just want to put it on, and then you would push this down, which I already have, to disengage the parking brake. Now we're back at Fun Central, and let's get the party started. So what we're going to do is first we're going to put the 13 millimeter socket and 15 millimeter wrench on the removal parts here. I can't do this with two hands, so I needed both hands to do that. When I'm done using that's the only thing you're using these two tools for, is to remove these two outer caliper bolts. Now that we have that removed, let me see if I can get a little light on there. Yeah, much better. And then on this side, unlike the driver's side, the passenger side has a brake pad sensor, which we will get to more definitively. There it is right there, once we get more into it. And now what we're going to do is articulate this caliper in the up position like that first, and then negotiate it your way out. Now once you have that part out, set it on your caliper bracket as such. Makes it much easier to work. And you want to remove the brake pad sensor, which in this case it was broken. That's why the brake pad sensor, the brake pad light was on. God, I'm full of tongue twisters today. Once you've got that out, now you're going to take out these two T30s, run there, and then there's one hiding right there underneath that wire. This actually seems to be the best way to prop it up. So the wire's out, there's your T30 there, T30 there. It's a good idea, especially your first time. You want to take some photos how everything looks, because for example this bracket may or may not fit both ways, so you want to make sure you remember that the plug holder is in this position. Okay, so now we're going to move the one. Turning there. Alright, that came out. Alright, you get it. Now that the bracket is loose and maneuverable, much easier with two hands. Obviously you want to be holding a camera doing this. Place it down just how it was so that you can remember. Now we go back to this, and let's remove this plug, which again, it's advisable to use two hands, but you're going to press down here and pull up. Place the wire off to the side here. Now that you have this, you see that it's already separating, comes off nice and easy. You're going to place this down over here nice and gently, always remembering that the pigtail over here is at the top of the caliper. Remember that. Now you simply hang the caliper piston on the ear of the bracket, and this is a T45 that I showed you earlier. You're going to turn it clockwise or counterclockwise. You'll have to figure it out, and the way you do that is you hold it here on the piston, and you can feel it either coming out or going in. You'll know when it's right when it stops. So what we did was we figured out that it was supposed to be going clockwise, and then what I did was I held the piston here while spinning this clockwise, and I pushed in with my thumb, and you could feel it start to recessing, but it's not going to recess all the way. As you can see right here, the piston is still out, and now we're going to go to that phase. So in this case, this happens to be the particular setup that I prefer to work with. Actually, I did forget to show you one thing. So this disc normally has 2 dimples on each side. The caliper, you know what, let me take it apart and show it to you. So whenever you're turning back caliper pistons, normally there's 2 notches or 4 notches, and an electric piston, caliper assisted pistons, apparently there's a 3-notch system. So the way that you resolve that issue is you take one of your adapters, bear with me. All right, so in this case, you see the 2 dimples. In this case, there's only 1 dimple or nipple, whatever you want to call it, and then this side is flat. So what you do is you take the flat side, let's put that back together, take the flat side like this, again negotiate it in. A little bit difficult to do with one hand, but as you see, it is possible. Just for instructional purposes, always use 2 hands. Make sure this caliper never drops. It's only being supported by the hose, which is rubber, and depending on the age and the wear on the hose, it could rip, tear, and then you have a new problem. So let's avoid that. Once again, we're back to the 9/16 on this end, and this is normally a 7/8, I believe, but I'm going to be using the adjustable wrench here. And what you do is you turn this into a tightening motion, and then this will put slight resistance. So for every full turn you turn this, 1 full revolution, you turn this about a half a revolution, because they move at different speeds, almost like gearing, and you'll get it. You just work it nice and slow, but you're going to turn this piston in now, because this acts as the pressure plate, and it's going to force it in that way. I did forget to mention one other thing here. If you're observing this right here, you see how it's kind of flush. When it pops out a little bit, that's when you'll know you've reached the end, or this will stop. So I didn't see it actually pop out, but I did have my finger on it and I felt it move out. So then that's it. You know, also this was no longer turning. I was turning it clockwise, and it was no longer going in. So now you disassemble by simply loosening this here, and then you take this out. Again, that tool is now done. This tool is now done. Pliers are now done. Now we're going to work on reassembly. If you're only doing the pads, if you're doing the rotors, clearly you would have to go to more steps, which, as you can see here, looks like a 17 millimeter there and there. Then the bracket would come off, and then you have a set screw here, which is not necessary to reuse once you put the new rotor on. That is optional for you. To me, it looks like it is a hex, probably maybe a T30, not T, I'm sorry, H30, H35 it could be. But you'll figure it out as you go if you are doing rotors. In this instance, we are not. So now we've put in the inboard pad. Now we're going to work on the outboard pad. This is the passenger side rear brake pad, and I'll show you how this goes in. So here is the wire right here. The thin side right here, where on the side where my thumb is, that is going to go down just like, bang. That's going to go in there just like this. So that way the thicker part is the rotor pad side, rather, that goes towards the rotor. Come on, focus. And that is your actual brake pad sensor, which sends a signal right through the wire, and then it goes in through the system and all the way up to the front. And that's what it looks like right there. It didn't take very much. It was a little bit tough, but it has to be tight so that it stays in place. And I just push down. Now we're going to put the pad on, and we're going to route the wiring once everything is reassembled. Okay, starting reassembly here. I'm going to need 2 hands, but you're going to need to place this. Remember, the plug needs to be at the 12 o'clock position, or in the upward position once it is mounted. So you got your T30 here, one on the bottom, and let's not forget that bracket and its specific positioning. You're going to negotiate this back on. It doesn't go on very tough. It's rather easy, but I prefer to use 2 hands just for good measure. Okay, wanted to make a little side note here, because some technicians or people who are DIYers, everybody out there, they perform their services a little bit different than others. If this ear of the electric drive is out here against the head where you don't see these threads. Okay, it's very important that you make sure you push this against into the caliper, have them marry as close as possible. Do not walk this in, is what I call it, my circles anyway. You don't want to walk or drive this unit in through the bolts, because if the gearing isn't meshed underneath, then you could have potentially a bigger issue. Make sure that works for both sides, that this is as close to married as possible, as you see the seam right there, and then you'll eliminate any problems with good fortune. Now, for those of you who caught my little mistake, yes, I did not have this bracket on. I usually don't work step by step. I usually flow a little bit faster, but when working step by step, sometimes you realize that you are human after all, and you did forget to put on the bracket. So I undid the bolts, took them out, the T30s, and I put the bracket on as you see here, and now we'll continue reassembly. Now we're going to put the top plug in. Listen for that clip, and you know you're home safe. And then we can take the caliper, and you want to start in the upward position. It's going to be a little hard, but you want to start like this and negotiate your way back in. So let's do that. Once again, had a human moment. I forgot to route the wiring through the window as you see here. So when it was paused, I undid it and redid it again. Once again, I tried to put it as far out as I could, so then you can see the negotiation, which is pretty much that's it. Then you're going to have to reroute the wire, put the wiring into its little clipped positions. Okay, so we're going to do the first one here. Then you got one back here for the hose. Then you got another one around here. Now that we got the wire in there, follow it here. It goes in this chamber here. Then you have a clip, which just goes underneath it. It comes up pretty easily there. Follow that down to the next clip. Actually, I believe it's a holder right here. Then you have another clip right here. It goes underneath there. And that usually clicks there. Then you work your way up over here into this box. Now there's two tabs onto this box right here. You want to lift that up. Once again, negotiating your way out of it. Follow the wire. In this case is in the top. And then you'll get that out, disconnect it here. Oops, sorry. You get this out over here, disconnect it here, and put the new wire in. Sorry, kids, I needed to have two hands for that. So this was like this. I pulled this out. You're gonna need probably, oh no, you don't need two hands. There you go. That's it there. Tuck your wire in. Make sure you get that clipped in. Put it in its new home over here. Reconnect this part here, which ironically is proving to be a little difficult with just one hand. You know how to do that. Once your wire's in its new home, shut the door and have a nice sleep. Now let's go to reassembly of the caliper. Now we come back to the last time. We're going to use the 15mm nut to hold it, and then make sure that your tool or your ratchet is on tighten. Record both, sorry. Then do the same thing down here. And now you've completed the brake pad replacement on 2016 BMW X3 35i. Time to just reinstall the 17mm bolts onto the rim, and then you're all done. Thanks so much for watching another edition of Solved. Hope this has helped you, or if you know somebody this can help, please like, share, subscribe, and follow. And we'll see you in the next video. Until then, stay tuned. Hasta la pasta.